Hello and welcome everyone to this live stream here with Bybit. And thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Han Tan. I'm the Chief Market Analyst at Bybit. And now let me guess, you are here to get some smart insights on how to make the right decisions or just to trade smarter, make better informed decisions, especially with Bybit TradFi. Well, you are in luck because over the next 20, 30 minutes or so, we are going to cover exactly that. Now, in case you didn't know, here at Bybit TradFi, which is short for traditional finance, that was launched just last year. And more recently, we have launched new modes that can help you get the most out of your TradFi experience. So we'll be sharing all of that shortly with our very special guest. But first things first, we do have a giveaway just for you who are joining us on this live stream. We can pull this up on the screen here, producer Galvin. And this is specifically for new users. Like if you scan this QR code that we're going to pull up on the screen here shortly, we are going to, so you have this QR code, you can scan it, and then you will land on a page within Bybit website, and you can sign up for a new account, and there you can get your share of 20,000 USDT in rewards. And not only that, after you sign up, there could be even more rewards for you. I'll just leave this on the screen here for a few seconds more before I show you some of the other goodies that we have in store within the Bybit universe. So these are just some of the giveaways that we have for new users. But on top of that, we've got more. And in addition to all of the fancy tools that we have rolled out just to enhance your experience as you make your journey across markets. All right. So once you scan this QR code, you will actually land on this screen right here. Oh, not this one. Sorry. Let me just go here. Over here. Right. So you can see that there are these many different tasks that you can then complete and earn more as you make your way through this content. And I want to draw your attention to the one down here because we are focusing on TradFi for today. And on top of that, you've got the 10,000 USDT in bonuses that you can stand to win if you click on here and go through the course. And so you can make better informed decisions across TradFi markets, and then you can earn credits that you can use along the way as well. All right. So now, real quick, we have spoken earlier about these new modes that will help you get more control over how you manage costs, or even just to suit your different style and your needs. Right now, we know that there are so many of you with different preferences. So we thought, hey, no better person to walk us through this than our very special guest. Let's bring him on now. Brendan Hong is a well-established influencer and a trader across financial markets. Certainly made a name for himself, not just within X, but across his investing journey as well. Brendan, thank you so much for being here. Certainly a pleasure having you on this live stream.
Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing all right, man. Really excited about what we're going to cover over the next 20 minutes or so. But I think first things first, right? Look, for those of us, in the know, we have already seen your X profile. We know, how you got to where you are, right? But perhaps for those who are joining us on this live stream and new to all this, talk us through about the genesis of Brendan Hong, if I may, right? How did you first get started? And then, how did you shape this bias towards the TradFi markets or trading in general?
Yeah, so my background is a little bit unorthodox. So I had a pretty early start. So I was accepted to college when I was 13 years old. And after I graduated, I was mostly doing computer science during college. And I ended up working with Eric Schmidt's family office venture. Eric Schmidt was the former CEO of Google. And I was a founder of an AI health startup that I exited a few years ago. And ever since then, I've been mostly a discretionary trader, trading markets, mostly in crypto, and have been posting a lot of content around trading systems that focus mostly on asymmetry and being objective when it comes to trading, being able to trade any assets in any market condition, and any trends that exist within any asset class. And afterwards, I've mostly been focused in private markets recently, doing a lot of deals within AI and robotics companies. But yeah, a lot of my interest over the past couple of years has been really just showing that you can basically trade any market condition and any asset as long as there's some sort of asymmetric trend that exists in those markets.
Yeah, and so I think right just from that short intro, right? I think there are two key points to be made already. Number one, I think there is this need, especially in this current market environment, especially what we're seeing with the crypto charts, there is this need, this compelling need to diversify, because it's not about being so beholden to just that one asset that you are so biased towards, but instead cast your sights further afield, and you'll realize there are plenty of opportunities if you just don't remain or if you do remain asset agnostic, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing that really caught people off guard over the past couple of years is that ultimately I think crypto has had a great opportunity vehicle for many different kinds of trend trades. I think between like 2017 to maybe like 2025, it's been a great sort of way to extract money from the markets if you're able to capitalize on those trends that arise. But unfortunately, yeah, it's I mean there have been many different trends in other markets too, and especially within metals, within equities, within commodities. So there's many other asset classes that have performed very well. And that's the kind of what I've been posting content about is primarily just the crux of trading is being able to identify those trends wherever they emerge.
Yeah, and real quick, look, speaking about the different asset classes that you just mentioned there earlier, if you can just share my screen again, so I'll tell you folks how you can actually access some of those. And apologies for this really messy chart here. So if you go on down to the web trading platform and you hover across the top left hand corner, this hamburger menu that we have here, you notice this TradFi tab here, right? And then underneath it, you see we've got so many different assets represented within the TradFi universe. I'm talking about metals like gold and commodities that Brendan mentioned earlier. You got Forex, including Euro Dollar, which is the world's most popular, most traded FX pair. You've got indices that you know and love, like the Nasdaq 100, the S&P 500, names that you have perhaps come across as you journey through financial markets, and even individual stocks. And some of them, the big name ones like Nvidia, we've got earnings from Nvidia coming out tomorrow after US markets close, and all these big names that you know and love within the Bybit TradFi universe as well, right? So it's certainly a very healthy, very comprehensive representation of the different asset classes that can present the next trading opportunity for you. But with that said, right, Brendan, perhaps for given the time constraints, if I were to kind of put you on the spot and talk about, okay, between metal stocks, indices, forex, commodities, right, which one, and going back to the point you mentioned earlier about adhering to trends, right, which asset class really stands out to you in having this strong trend at this point in time?
Yeah, so that's been gold and silver over the past few months. So this is something that I've really been making a lot of videos on over the past few months. Is really recognizing the significance of sort of high time frame breakouts. So if you guys aren't really familiar with my trading system, it's mostly just about like identifying like objective factors that contribute to strong trends in assets, whether it's downtrends or uptrends. And in particular, the components of my system involve sort of high time frame support and resistance. So understanding, looking at maybe the daily or weekly chart, I'm seeing high time frame levels of interest is maybe only really maybe like 3 or 4 important levels on each chart, and then looking at the confluence of that alongside market structure. So looking at the trend into those levels, if it's an uptrend, basically putting in higher highs and higher lows, then recognizing the strength of that opportunity combined with some sort of high time frame breakout. And particularly on the gold chart, what caught my attention most last fall was the high time frame breakout above the 3,500 actually level. This was a sort of high time frame level that has existed for pretty much months, and it was sort of slowly grinding into that level. And then we had that sort of bigger trend that emerged afterwards over the past few months. And that's something that I was really particularly interested in trading, and that's kind of why I went pretty much all in as much as I could on metals, on both silver and gold, because they're making those sort of all-time high breakouts. And for gold, I think that's the chart that's actually most interesting to me at the moment. If you actually, I mean, if you have your chart pulled up right here, 5,100 has been sort of a key pivot over the past few weeks. And I think if we actually stay above this level, there could be some interesting continuation. I think we could actually potentially get all-time highs if we sort of continue to trend strongly above this level. But that kind of has to yet to be seen.
Yeah, and we are certainly very eager to see your version of the gold chart in just a bit, but hey, we got to also talk about this really cool, nifty new mode that we have launched within Bybit TradFi, and you'll find it in the bottom right hand corner here. You can see account mode, right? So if you click on it, and it comes up with this nice little pop up here. I'll zoom in a little bit, right? So kind of talk us through a little bit, and I'm sure we'll be hitting this point, time and time again during this chat here. But you've got clearly two different modes that we have available within the Bybit TradFi offering right now. So on the left hand side, you've got zero fee mode, and you can see at the bottom that there's this nice summary about how this mode might be better suited for traders who prefer a simple, steady trading experience, zero fees, and stable spreads, as opposed to say something that perhaps the more nuanced trader would prefer, with a fixed commission lot, so that they can make those cost calculations easy right off the bat, and they need to execute faster than usual. So they prefer those ultra tight spreads, right? So there is some give and take between these two different modes, right? Talk to us about some practical scenarios about how you might switch between those two modes, or how you can use them to your advantage there, Brendan.
Yeah. And for context, actually, I do use Bybit TradFi pretty often for a lot of trading, particularly with CFDs on assets like gold and silver. And I think for most people, zero fee mode would probably make the most sense. If you're just a sort of average everyday trader, maybe you enter positions every now and then. I think it's probably the least complicated. And if you're not doing sort of highly sophisticated intraday trading or higher frequency trading, I think it makes more sense. Tight spread mode is sometimes usable if, for example, you're trading around volatility during New York Open or Futures Open, where there could be a lot of volatility that happens during those periods of time, in which case I think it actually does make sense if you want sort of tighter spreads, if you want to ensure that you're getting the sort of rates that you want, that could be more applicable during those periods of time.
Now, and then especially given your affinity for trend trading, right? Is that a fair representation to say you mostly adhere to trend trading? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think for the average person out there, like I think, especially if you're trading, following a trend, right? Especially a medium to longer term trend, perhaps this zero fee mode might be better suited for them, isn't it?
Yeah. Because I think for most trend traders, right, especially if you're coming from the mindset of asymmetry, and I think that's something that I like to spread across in a lot of my videos, is recognizing that whenever you're trading any sort of trend, recognize the sort of asymmetric outcome where anytime that, I do a lot of my business in key high time frame levels on trend, so that the downside is very protected, right? It's I define my invalidation so that maybe if the trend doesn't continue, or if there's no continuation above some sort of level, then I can quickly exit that trade for a much smaller comparative loss to any upside that happens. So I think whenever you're trading, you have to recognize if your upside is significantly greater than your downside, then you have some sort of asymmetric trade, in which case, the sort of specific spreads don't really matter that much, as long as you're able to capitalize on that upside.
And a quick segue before we jump into your charts there that we really want to see here. Quick yes or no. Stop loss. Yes or no? Important. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Very important. Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, so that's a little PSA for you right there. Okay, cool. So let's dive into some of the exciting charts that you have to show for us. Talk us through some of the opportunities within the TradFi space that you're seeing right now, because clearly you've spoken about how these different modes could be used to your advantage depending on market conditions and your risk tolerance and your trading style. Now we want to know the brand and your color on things here. So yeah, let's go ahead and see if we can pull up Brendan's charts here.
Let me go and share my screen.
Cool.
Can you guys see this?
It's coming up. There we go. Yeah, cool. Go ahead. Take it away.
Okay, so this is the gold chart at the moment, and this is something that has been a pretty clear trend over the past few months. Particularly, like I said, when we had that sort of all-time high breakout. So this is the daily chart, right? So looking back at the time frame, stemming back to all the way last April, right? So last year in April, we had this sort of level established around 3,500. And then we had this sort of grind up where we had this establishment of higher lows in this time. And then as soon as we made an all-time high, this really caught my attention. And that's when I recognized the opportunity here with metals. And at the time, I was still doing a lot of crypto trading. It's not like I've ignored crypto by any means, but I think at the time, right, crypto was sort of stagnating. So that all the way, this is around September, it sort of made sense to transition more into other asset classes that were trending more strongly. And even before this, right, like gold has been pretty much, it's been showing a lot of strength. Very, very clean uptrend where we had the series of higher highs and higher lows this entire time. So it's pretty much textbook sort of market structure. And so this was a big breakout sort of position into around 3,500. And ever since then, I mean, it's kind of gone crazy. I mean, it's continued to make higher highs, higher lows. And it kind of, all culminated into this sort of blow off top that we saw over the past few weeks, where at the beginning of February, or I guess end of January, we had this sort of move all the way up here. And that's kind of where I took a lot of profits, particularly when we had this sort of lower high that established. So I think whenever you're trend trading, it's important to recognize when a trend might potentially be ending, at least in the short term, and recognizing that, we had this sort of a blow off top into CME. And that's kind of leads me into another setup that I take a lot, and I discuss a lot in my videos, is recognizing how to position into trends. For example, this has been a strong trend throughout, but recognizing when there are particular moments of volatility that allow you to basically position into any trend. And one of those sort of particular periods of volatility is during these sort of opens. So every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern time is a great time to be online, because this is when CME opens. It's when futures markets open for a variety of equities and commodities. And so this is when I do a lot of business, right? And this is actually, we can see right here, for example, this was all the way back in January, but this is when CME opened, and we actually see that there's pretty much a pump right off the rip. And ever since then, price had not seen levels like that for a very, very long time. And pretty much almost every single day during either New York Open or CME Open, we had this sort of pump, right? For example, right here, we had this sort of volatility events right around New York Open. And similarly with other times during CME, we get these sort of massive pumps. And these are sort of moments to be online and recognize those moments of volatility to basically help you define trades, right? For example, with this trade, this was a sort of good risk-defined trade to take during CME, where your invalidation for this trade, your stop loss can be kind of anywhere below this candle, and you kind of just play that trend as it sort of forms afterwards. So that's kind of how I position into trends based on volatility events that form. And even, for example, over the past weekend, right, there was another volatility event that happened during CME where, for example, gold, right, at this $5,100 level, we've been sort of chopping over the past few weeks below ever since those liquidations. But this has been a pretty clear sort of high time frame support and resistance level. We have a lot of confluence here with this being resistance before and then resistance twice before right here. Pretty much as we were grinding up last Friday into this level, I was kind of expecting that we would actually see a potential move up on the open. And that's kind of what we got. Pretty much exactly on Sunday open, a couple of days ago, we got this pump into this level. And we actually sort of got this retest during New York Open a few minutes ago. And so we'll see if we actually sort of sustain. But these sort of opportunities provide really good risk-defined trade opportunities for you to sort of scale into these trends as they rise.
Yeah, and those opens are crucial as well, especially in this Trump administration, right? Because we know that gold is a safe haven asset. What does that mean? In times of greater fear, in times of heightened market uncertainty, investors and traders rush to gold, just like Brendan, because a safe haven asset helps protect your wealth during times of fear and uncertainty, right? And during this Trump administration, we know weekends have been the window for military actions. You just got to go back to the military action in Venezuela that happened over the weekend, right? Strikes here in the Middle East, or even tariff announcements, right? So what happened this past weekend, which Brendan rightly alluded to in the charts right there. On Friday, you had the Supreme Court striking down all of Trump's tariffs. And then quickly Trump pivoted, announced 10% tariffs on that Friday. And then on Saturday, hiked it up straight away to 15%. And markets are not able to react, right, in real time during the weekend. So when's their next best opportunity? Like Brendan highlighted, right at the open, Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can find those localized timings within the Bybit TradFi universe as well. Whichever asset you've got, just look for that info tab. You can click on it, and then you can see the timings, not just in UTC time, but also to your local time as well, right? So So very cool. Now I do want to ask though. So with this chart that you showed us, right? It seems that yeah, you are clearly looking for a timing, market open. You're looking for news flow. You're looking at what the prices are telling you. Are you also relying on other technical indicators? And if so, just maybe give us your favorite one. Is it a moving average? Is it an RSI? Is it a MACD? Like, what's your go-to, or do you just keep it nice and clean, just what the prices are telling you alone?
Yeah, so it's very clean. So as you can see in this chart,
Okay.
I have no indicators. I actually don't use
Mm,
any indicators whatsoever. I pretty much only use high time frame levels of support and resistance, and really that only entails maybe a few different important levels. For example, like this is sort of a like outline of my structure that I pretty much just like asked Grok. I was like, hey, like look at my Twitter videos and just compile my trading system. And really, this is
nice.
it. It's only market structure, high time frame support and resistance, perhaps some sort of narrative that forms around the markets,
Mm,
maybe some relative strength and momentum. But the keys are just being able to focus on asymmetry of each setup. And recognizing risk management principles, so understanding to set certain stop losses at invalidation levels, and also having loose profit targets in mind and sort of adhering to them as they sort of come about. But
mm.
yeah, really no indicators at all.
Yeah, so I like that term, right? Lose profit targets, because sometimes you just gotta let your trade, positions breathe a little bit, eh? Especially on those higher time frames there. Well, actually, I was actually should perhaps say, especially more so on the smaller time frames, right? So, real quick before we perhaps segue to another chart. So, for this daily or higher time frames, do you go up to like a week, a month, or daily is pretty much your comfort zone here?
Yeah, I mean, there's no specific rules. I think that's the nice thing about trading is that, like, I
Mm-mm.
think it's unintuitive because I think some people expect there to be some sort of like scientific sort of principle or like formula for trading. But I think, I mean, yes, there are certain systems, elements of my system that are fairly set in stone. But for most charts, I mean, it kind of depends on, for example, like when they were like, when they existed. For example, with gold, I mean, it's been existing for many decades. Same with silver. I mean, this, for example, is a decent chart to use the weekly chart for because I mean it's been obviously an asset that's been used for many decades now, and it was breaking out over like a 40 50-year high time frame level. So for some charts, right, it's more applicable to zoom out, but it really depends. I mean, there's no standard sort of time frame.
Yeah, and so again, before we segue into perhaps some of your other charts around the AI and robotics theme, which I know you're really excited about and passionate about, and also perhaps personally vested in as well. So again, before we move away from this chart, so for a daily time frame or those higher time frames, right, between those two modes that we had highlighted earlier, zero fee mode or the tight spread mode, in your assessment, which one is perhaps better suited for some of these higher time frames, and again purely looking at it from a time the time frame for the candlestick chart that you choose.
Yeah. So, for example, if you were trading silver, right, this was a high time frame level at around $50 that has existed for the past like 15 years. And
Mm,
if you're looking to buy the all time high break, so this is something that I bought with pretty high sizing, given the significance of this breakout, given the significance of the structure into this level. For that, I mean, you might just want to use the zero fee sort of a mode because really you don't really care too much about the specific spreads. You don't care much about the exact market price that you enter, or just that you get some exposure. And if you're holding for that sort of higher time frame breakouts, then it doesn't really matter when specifically or where specifically you enter, as long as you get some exposure. But yeah, if you're trading CME, for example, I mean, with silver, there's a lot of volatility, primarily because I mean it's slightly lower market cap, but there's a lot of industrial usage, so it sometimes it can be really strong, sometimes it can be really weak, right? For some of these moments where for example, on CME, right? This was another CME trade right here. You might really care a lot about the sort of spreads or specific sort of market prices. So if you're
mm.
trading on lower time frames, like maybe the 5 minute or even the 1 minute for these moments, you might actually want to instead use the other mode instead.
Yeah, and again, to be clear, folks, if you're still with us, just know this: none of this is financial advice. Please do your own research. Now, what we are definitely highlighting is the strategies and some of the tactics used by Brendan, who's clearly an established trader. But ultimately, right, you have to find your own style, according to your risk tolerance, according to the asset that you are trading, because as we know, each of these assets has do display their very unique characteristics, right? So it is very dependent on so many different different factors. So please do your own research. All right. And also, folks, just a quick reminder that, feel free to drop us any questions that you have for Brendan or myself, right? And we'll be happy to talk you through some of the, I don't know, whatever questions that you might have. So yeah, feel free to just drop them on the chat. I believe we are streaming live on X and also, of course, on the Bybit app and the website as well. So you can just drop us your questions and comments there. All right, cool. Now, I know another sector that is certainly hot right now, although it's taken quite a bit of a twist or a more nuanced approach to it of late, is the story or the narrative around AI. And in your case, also, you have a keen interest in robotics, right? So perhaps start us off by talking about why AI. Well, I guess there's no need at this point in time to talk about why AI, but how does robotics supplement the AI narrative? And then what specifically are you looking at within this broad narrative?
Yeah, so I pretty much put most of my net worth into robotics and AI assets, particularly in private markets. There are some public market opportunities in these sectors that I can touch upon in a second. But yeah, I mean, my thesis on AI and robotics is pretty simple, right? Anytime that you're an investor, you want to look for opportunities that have a very high TAM. So that means total addressable market. And with AI, right, it's pretty much all encompassing, right? It allows you to automate pretty much any different industry. And in particular, right, looking at software industries, looking at industries of labor, which is how robotics sort of fits into this. So there are many different kinds of robotics plays or categories. Something that's really hot right now is, of course, humanoid robots. That's basically robots that are general all-purpose robots that are supposed to actually solve problems of human labor. And when you have that sort of potential TAM, right, I mean, the entire industry of labor is a 40-50 trillion dollar industry. So any one of these companies that could potentially offer autonomous robots that can solve basically problems of human labor in industrial contexts or even settings like the home, right? So anytime you have that sort of potential, there's going to be companies that have very high valuations that are just going to go parabolic over the next few years. And even over the past 1 or 2 years, companies like Figure AI, for example, they were raising at around $2.6 billion just maybe 2 years ago. And last year, I mean, their valuation bumped up 15x in the private markets, which is why I've focused majority of my efforts within those sort of sectors. But there are a decent amount of sort of public plays that you can do within these sectors that are pretty interesting. For example, obviously Tesla is building their Optimus robot. I believe this is also available on Bybit TradFi as well, right? But
Yes.
yeah,
Tell you what, as you go about explaining the thesis there, I'll try and pull up some of the charts for the assets that I'm mentioning here. We'll do
yeah,
this
feel
live.
free to.
Folks,
Yeah.
this is a live stream here, folks. All right. So bear with me. But yeah, go on, Brendan.
Yeah. So I think for assets like Tesla, that could be a pretty high potential, especially with Elon Musk building those Optimus robots. I think the goal for him is actually to transition Tesla to primarily a robotics or humanoid robot business. Because I mean, if you imagine, right, like a humanoid robot costs maybe around they want to get the cost around 50K, maybe to 100K. And you imagine, if there's like 100,000 robots, for example, that are being produced, or 1 million robots, you can imagine how the revenue for that just scales incredibly. I mean, you'll be making hundreds of millions, not billions of dollars of revenue, which would entail at a multiple of that, right? Like a potentially $500 billion valuation for a lot of these sort of companies. So, and I don't think this is necessarily a winner take all industry. And there's many different other types of robotics, including robotics in specialized robotics, like robotic arms, for example. There's robotics within construction, within agriculture, within mining. So there's many different opportunities for basically to automate human labor across many different kinds of sectors. And I think it's only really beginning. So I think getting exposure to these kinds of industries, I think, is pivotal for the future of the world.
Right. And look, now distill all that, right? I mean, that's certainly very insightful at the top level, right? But just kind of distill it down to perhaps some of the specific opportunities within the TradFi space, and especially in the public markets, right? So you mentioned Tesla. Are there other stocks that you might be looking at? Because, okay, look, for so long, at least, when the whole AI boom kind of happened at the onset of it, right? NVIDIA was a poster child, right? But then we've seen over the last few months, I think since the record high, since I think sometime in Q4 of last year, I think October maybe, or maybe December, right? It's kind of kind of gone into this sideways trend here, and perhaps there are some other names that are perhaps more ripe for the next leg up. Although the AI narrative still has plenty of legs to it, and we know that Nvidia has its earnings coming up in the middle of this week, but perhaps the stock has, or the trend, to use your word there, has run its course. Are there other names in the public markets that you are perhaps looking out for?
Yeah, so actually, there's a decent amount within Asian countries, actually, and
Mm.
that's another thing. But where we're like most people in America don't actually understand the kinds of trends that exist in other countries, particularly in China, which are quite strong. I mean, the humanoid robotics space has produced a lot of winners in China, in particular, that have gone very well. So, a stock that's available in public markets in the U.S., for example, on the New York Stock Exchange, is XPEV or XPeng. That's something that this company has existed for a long time, mostly in the sort of vehicle or motor departments, but they've been building a lot of humanoid robots in particular. So I think that's a public market play that potentially could be good exposure for in the future. But it's difficult. I will admit that it is hard to find like AI robotics sort of plays. Another one, for example, could be Bloom Energy. This is the stock that I was trading ever since last year, where basically, I mean, if you can't get direct exposure to AI robotics, directly, there are other ways that you can basically just buy the parts, or like buy the sources of their energy. And there are a few different vehicles for this. One of which includes buying sort of companies that are involved within energy sources that are sustainable, that are capable of actually backing the infrastructure required for these robotics and AI companies. So Bloom Energy, or BE, is another ticker that I've been looking at over the past few months.
Yeah, cool. So I'm gonna pull up this chart here, folks. Galvin, if you can share the screen here, and again, folks, don't forget you can drop your questions that you may have. We have covered about so many different things, not just the AI and robotics theme, but we've also spoken about traditional safe haven assets like gold. You saw the charts earlier, right? All available within the Bybit TradFi universe. So again, if you are watching this on the web platform, right? So you just gotta hover over the hamburger menu in the top left hand corner and just type in your desired asset. So earlier we spoke about Tesla. That is the code right there. We've got many different offerings that track Tesla as well. But for this one is Tesla, the stock CFD under the TradFi tab, and this is the chart here. He mentioned Bloom earlier. I'm not sure if we got Bloom, but let me just do a quick check. Doesn't look like we have it, but I think a similar one that I was actually looking at right before this live stream is this one called Vertiv, right? So look how this is on the daily time frame, just popped up to this record high, this gap up there on the back of its earnings, I think in January, and it's got its next earnings call coming up in April. But this is one that's perhaps what I call AI adjacent, right? So this is one of those companies that makes the gears or the machinery to specifically handle the power needs, the power generation needs for all these huge data centers that are built all around the world, and in the US, right? And so they are certainly, benefiting from this AI bonanza. So even though they're not, say, like a hyperscaler like the Microsofts and the Nvidias and the Alphabets and what have you, but it's something that is very much in need because of the hundreds of billions that are being spent on AI and all the power that it consumes, right? So it's all these other adjacent names like Vertiv Holdings, code there VRT, that you can also find within the Bybit TradFi universe. Now, earlier I spoke about it also, like, so you can see this info tab right off to the right of the chart tab. So you click on it and you can see all the local timings there we have for your trading, okay? So tell you what, I know we're slightly over time, so let's actually go ahead and get into some questions here. We've got a bit of a fun one. Somebody asks if I'm a Scottish speaker. No, I have spent my adult life in the States, Sydney, Singapore, and now I'm here in the UAE. So, call me a global citizen there. I'm not sure how you can pin down my accent, but certainly not Scottish. Brendan, do you detect any Scottish in my accent there?
Honestly, I can see it. I can see it. It's actually
Really?
yeah, it's a cool accent, actually.
Well, thank you. You can call me Han McTan then from now on. Okay, cool. Here's the question now. Can users change leverage manually in TradFi trading? So now, the answer I believe is actually that's a good question. Let me just double check with the product manager before I actually answer that. Parul, if you're hearing this, yeah, let me get an answer to that. We've got also another question about can people change between these two modes here? And so the short answer is yes. But there is a caveat in that, if once you switch over, perhaps, as some advice, you might want to close the positions in the previous mode so that, you don't kind of conflate the two here. All right. But the short answer is yes. Some other questions here. Let's see, maybe one that Brendan, you can take. Give me a second. Uh, does the execution speed change between modes? Short answer is no. Um, Question here: which mode is better for trading gold? I think Brendan very expertly addressed that earlier already. So it depends on the trader, depends on the time frame you're using, and really, you can kind of assess just by the write-ups that we have here. I think ultimately, or oversimplified answer will be zero fee mode. You're kind of looking at newbies, or you're looking at perhaps this is your first venture into the TradFi space. You need a bit more flexibility, a bit more stability, right? You can perhaps opt for the zero fee mode. Again, this is not advice, right? This is very much dependent on many factors, but just as a rule of thumb, perhaps if you're new to this, zero fee mode might be a better way to start. Tight spread mode will be perhaps more suited for high frequency traders, or somebody who's kind of more accustomed to kind of knowing your way around, especially with trading platforms. Okay. Question: how often can I switch account modes? Yeah, again, I think that there's no hard and fast rule. You can switch again as long as there's no open position on the other side. You want to close it from where you were before switching over to the other mode of your choosing. Okay. Anything else you want to add, Brendan, from the little spiel that I had from all this, based on your experience between these two modes?
No, I think that pretty much covered it actually. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So again, for leverage, right? No, so no different contracts. Yeah. So there is a leverage adjustable. So no, not quite. I should have mentioned this. Sorry, my apologies here. I need to do my job as a Bybit employee. All right, cool. So you can find out again more info right within the info tab, right? So not just your lot sizing, but also the leverage, right? So you've got here. So this is the stock CFD. You can have up to 5, but if let's say we go over to gold, where was my gold chart here? I believe it's here. Sorry, folks, too many tabs open. I gotta. Here we go. All right. So under goal, right? So then you've got a leverage of up to 500, right? 1 to 500. So really, yeah. Again, it really depends on what or which instrument you're trading and under the market conditions that it's at, right? So especially when it's high volatility, you might notice big changes in the leverage size as well. So yeah, please do your own research, and we do have demo accounts as well where you can kind of get used to all these different settings as well. So by all means, but for today, we want to draw your attention to the account modes, that this is a new thing that we have just launched within the Bybit TradFi universe. Okay. I'm just going to do Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, something I want to add to that quickly actually is that for example with gold, the leverage is actually quite sufficient for pretty much all purposes. And I think one thing that I'd actually like to note is that Hana, if you click out of that and if you just go to for example, like the quantity, so like to your right, you see the quantity of lots and like the USD value. If you define that, actually, you can see how much the value of the contracts that you're taking on. And then if you click the TPSL checkbox, you can actually set those parameters ahead of time, and it'll tell you how much you stand to gain or lose from the trade based on the TP or stop loss that's being hit. So that's a really useful tool to see, because sometimes with the USD value or the lots value, you can't really tell how much how much risk you're taking on exactly. So if you set those parameters, you can see, for example, if gold reaches a certain price, then if you get stopped out, you might, lose a certain amount of money, or you might win a certain amount of money based on your TP. So that's a good way of sort of understanding the risk that you're taking with each trade.
Man, I swear, Brendan, you might have just taken my job away from me. You did a better job than saying it. Yeah, no, look, I don't want to go into like this whole 101 mechanics of like how to, but yes, very aptly put there. So we have these many different tools to help guide you. So, just to kind of walk you through some of the numbers that I did, right? So again, I put in 0.01 because that's the minimum lot size that you have to put in. So if let's say, right, you do it, you try to put in more digits, like it won't let you, right? So the minimum lot size is 0.01. And then, yeah, to get more control, you can set your target price. That's TP, SL, stop loss, which and I put Brendan on the spot earlier and asked him, hey, stop loss, is it important? I guess the answer, as with many things, it's always in a spectrum, right? Some people will say no, some people will say yes, but I think in the spirit of being responsible traders, right? Ensure that hey, you live to see another day. I think a stop loss, and especially if you're new to these kind of products, I think it's definitely one to be mindful of and be aware of. And you can set your stop loss and take profit, and it goes either ways, right? Buy, sell. Okay, cool. Very nice point there. Let's see if we've got any other questions here. Not that I'm noticing any in the chat. We'll just give our super producer Galvin perhaps a few more seconds to just do a quick glance through to make sure we don't leave any questions unattended. In the meantime, let me just do a shameless plug here, folks. So again, we do have a giveaway just for this live stream. All you got to do is scan this QR code. No, not this one, right? So for new users, if you're joining us in this live stream and you stay for the whole 40 minutes, yeah, we've definitely gone above time here, folks. But thank you for staying with us this whole time. Now, to reward that, if you're a new user, you have yet to enter the Bybit universe, scan this QR code and you can stand a chance to win your share of 20,000 USDT in rewards and potentially more as well. You scan the QR code and you'll land within the Bybit website, which was which page again? This page, yeah, right. And then you can see many different tasks that you can embark on to enhance your learning and then get rewarded along the way as well. Quick shameless plug, on a daily basis, we do write the daily bits. And here's one that I published way back in January 27th, right? Just to update folks on that 5,000 goal call that we had made from late last year, hit it, and then where else could it go to next? And we've got different tools, including the Bloomberg terminal that we use to help guide our views across asset classes, not just gold, but also even a 12-month target prices for stocks as well. So keep checking in on our daily bits as well. Okay, looks like no other questions. Thank you very much, Galvin. Okay, look, Brendan, before we go, I'll leave the final word to you, right? And then I'm going to make it really generic. So, answer this however you will. For 2026, right? If you to sum it up in one sentence in terms of your investment or trading strategy, what is it? Go, sir.
Yeah, I think for 2026, the primary strategy is to just be adaptable, be flexible. Just understand that there are a lot of risks from AI that are affecting many other markets, and we don't exactly know how it's going to play out. So just adapt to whatever trends happen. If those trends exist within metals, then I think that's worth pursuing. If it's within equities, within even crypto, there's so many different opportunity vehicles to take advantage of these markets. So I think it's just important to stay ahead of the trend, understand both the upsides and the downsides of what AI brings, and just be ready for that.
And it ties in very nicely to what we had mentioned earlier. Be asset agnostic, right? So go where the trend guides you. Excellent stuff there, Brendan. Hey, thank you so much for imparting upon us all those insights and as well as those really handy, quick tips, for navigating your way around the Bybit TradFi web trading platform. And of course, you can find all these assets on the Bybit app as well. And the good thing is, in that search box across the top, just type in the asset that you're looking for, be it Tesla or Vertiv or Nvidia, earnings coming up tomorrow, gold, euro dollar, whatever it is, right? You can just type it in and it'll just pop up in the search results right from that search box at the very top. Okay, so happy hunting, happy discovering, and most importantly, happy trading TradFi over the course of this year. Thank you again, Brendan, for your time and insights, and I'll see you guys around next time right here on Bybit. Thanks so much. See ya.
Thanks for having me.